Welcome to the 217 South Mills podcast, brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona. We're here to talk football, our stories, our memories, what we accomplished, our family, what we did back then, and what we're doing today.
Brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin. Me and my wife are the owners of this establishment. Been open for 5.5 years. I also want to thank the city of Altoona for welcoming first-time business owners here. Super great to be a part of this community. Everybody was so welcoming and helping us out. So again, thanks to the people of Altoona and for helping us with our endeavor.
Sounds good. Now, who are we, Joe? We got to talk about who we are. My name is Bill Ferrario. We met way back when, 1996, almost 30 years ago at the University of Wisconsin. Played ball at Wisconsin for the Badgers, won a couple Rose Bowls. Myself, I had the opportunity to play professionally a little bit, played for the Green Bay Packers amongst a couple other teams, and born and raised in Scranton, Pennsylvania. But we'll get into that a little bit more. Who are you?
Well, my name is Joe Gribowski. I'm also played for the Badgers, and I've been in the Eau Claire County area for the last 20 years. We moved here for my job, so kind of a different path than Bill, but still a rewarding path, and I really enjoyed it. And we're going to get more into who we are and the history of us as the podcast continues. So, Bill, from Pennsylvania, let's elaborate on that for me.
Let's elaborate. Let's start with Scranton, Pennsylvania, home of The Office, NBC's hit television show. Got to say that. I still believe there was a writer that graduated with me on that show, but I'm still doing some research to find out the truths there. But Scranton, Pennsylvania was a coal cracking town back up until probably the late 60s. And just a town with, you had that attitude where it was a blue-collar town. You had that strong work ethic, determination. And it was also a town that, although I love it, love the food, love the people, love the culture there, it was a town that made you want to fight, and I wanted to grow on to bigger and better things. And I succeeded. So sort of got me where I am today. But yeah, I grew up. We lived in my grandma's house. It was my mom, my dad, my sister, Laura, who's 3 years younger than me, grew up in that same house. And we weren't below the poverty line, but we didn't have money, and we had to work for everything we got. And we earned everything we were given. So whether it was a toy or a scholarship, for me, it was hard work that went into it. And just enjoyed those days. We got a bunch of, us reminiscing about stories. We got a ton of funny stories that we're going to bring to you in the upcoming episodes. We're talking about going on the road in the future. We're talking about bringing in high school buddies that came to games or high school buddies that came to Wisconsin to visit us and tell their experiences and just sort of share this for us to have, for our kids to have, for our grandkids to have. And it's always going to be out there. And that's what we're happy about. My dad was one of those that told us, we got to document this stuff. We never did it, and now's the day we're actually doing it. So we're looking forward to it. But how about you, Joe? What was your town like? Where did you grow up? I know you grew up in a town that had an evergreen on the side of your helmet.
Yeah,
a tree.
That was a tree. That was the ongoing joke. I'm from central Wisconsin area. I went to DC Everest High School. He's busted my chops already because 30 years ago when, just had a conversation, he asked me, talking about high school days, et cetera. And he's like, what was your mascot? I'm like, it was an evergreen tree. He's like, a what? It was an evergreen tree. He's like, hold on a minute. Let me get this straight. Your school mascot is a bloody evergreen tree? Yeah, that's super intimidating.
So I'm not Irish, so I didn't say bloody. But you got to remember, I'm a West Scranton invader. We had a Marine carrying a wooden rifle at football games, and he has a person dressed up as a tree, as a Christmas tree without lights. So I just said the intimidation factor. We got a Marine leading us out of the tunnel. You got a tree.
And you can imagine we also had a lumberjack in our conference, Owasso East, and you can only imagine the jokes and the stories that were told about cutting down the trees.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So that's where I grew up. I grew up in a large family. I'm third of 6 kids. I'm the middle kid, the forgotten kid, as always. But that's okay.
Who can forget you? Look at that smile, that beautiful face. You can't be forgotten.
I agree. But, just blue collar also. My dad worked in a paper mill for 42 years. My mom cleaned houses. And as you were introducing yourself, talking about like coal mining towns and all the things that you did and how it formed you, very similar past, just blue collar, just not a lot of money, but we worked for everything and worked our butts off. And there's a huge correlation, in my opinion, about the way we were brought up that put us in the offensive line. It really is that blue collar kind of mentality. It's you do your job, shut up and work harder because no one cares. I mean, literally. So, I mean, as you're telling me about your past, which I already knew, that's what I was thinking of. That was the light bulb. Like, it's just kind of one of those positions where it's not glorious, it's not glamorous, but we went about our business and had a great time. So,
another catchphrase that's going to be coming up in later episodes is OWUA, overworked, underappreciated. That's an old lineman to say it's best. Like when Joe says blue collar, we're going out there doing the work. We're not, as a team, we score a touchdown. We're not getting our names announced. No one's saying 60 or 73. No one's clapping for them. They're clapping for the person that scores a touchdown. But that's the understanding of an old lineman. We're going to put in that work. We're going to be team players. We're going to fight for that team. So, I know we're going to talk a little bit about high school to wrap up this introduction episode. And I just wanted to say the one funny story we talked about the other night was high school where we went to. I had Joe D'Antona as my high school football coach. Actually was college teammates with Bernie Wyatt, who was the recruiting coordinator at Wisconsin, although Bernie did not recruit me. That'll probably be the first and last time I mention Bernie's name. But, they were college teammates, and he was the old school 1960s, 1970s hard ass. We didn't get water during practice till my senior year of high school. But the funny thing during the recruiting process, just to give a quick little story, was we had to fill out these forms. And I know you were much highly recruited over me, so you probably didn't have to put down the details of how many pancakes you got. But I got recruited as a D lineman, and the question was tackles and sacks. And I looked at my dad. We were putting together a highlight tape together, and we just said, well, how many games do you have? 11. I think 122 tackles sounds good. How about sacks? I think my senior year I had 3 legitimate solo sacks. We're like, 14 sounds like a good number. They didn't have stars back then, but I probably would have been a 5th star, probably the number 1 recruit coming out of Pennsylvania based on my stats. If you just looked at what I put on the piece of paper. But Wisconsin ended up bringing me out for a visit. And as I say, the rest was history. Got offered that scholarship, and that road was paved, and I'm happy with the way it went. And going back to you with the blue collar, right now, like we said, Cabin Coffee Altoona is our main sponsor. We're here in Joe and Kelly's coffee shop, and you can see that blue collar mentality has paid off for what you're doing now. Paying attention to detail, going over the little things, and just trying to knowing that you're probably not going to have a perfect day in the coffee shop. You're still striving for perfection every day, and you're producing a great product, a great coffee that people love. I love it. Especially when I get a discount on it, Joe. I love it a lot, but it does taste great. It's my favorite coffee shop, not because of the show and not because of the discount that I get from time to time, but it's a good coffee. It's a really good coffee. But how about you? What was your high school experience like?
So it's very similar. DC Everest had a very strong tradition of a winning football program, and I went to Catholic school till about 5th grade. And, had this desire, told my parents since I was 4 years old or younger that I was going to play football. And my dad had the foresight that we should probably get him into the DC Everest football program if I'm looking to prolong my career in football. I don't think many scholarship athletes came out for football in Catholic school, which is not an issue at all. But he had that foresight, ended up going to DC Everest and playing football. And, obviously I'm a large human being, so that helped out tremendously. But we were able to, learn football. It was a powerhouse football. Had just a tough coach that was there for 30 years by the name of William Sevenhagen, who passed away recently. Kind of laid the foundation and the groundwork as to, making me into a football player. The introduction's hard because I don't like talking about myself in accolades. So that's probably the hardest part. And this is probably going to be the most just not great introduction, just because it's hard for me to talk about myself. But I was number 1 recruit out of the state of Wisconsin for offensive line. I was Reebok All-American. From my junior year, I started getting letters from some big-time colleges, and always had that burning desire, though, to play at Wisconsin. So it didn't really matter any of the stuff. I was getting letters from Michigan, et cetera. But it was always I was that hometown kid, and it was 3.5 hours from my parents' place. And that was kind of the huge factor. And plus Wisconsin football was, they won the Rose Bowl in '94. So it seemed like they were on the right track.
Where I was sort of a little bit of a different side of it, where I was more of a revenge tour with where I wanted to go for college. So being born and raised in Pennsylvania, we call it the tri-state area. So whether you're Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, everybody is a Penn State football fan. And that's where I wanted to go. Joe Paterno was the head coach for God knows how many years at that point, and still coached many years after that. But I did get recruited slightly by Penn State. I got recruited as a D lineman, and my recruitment did not start off nearly as fast as yours, obviously, because of your caliber coming out of high school, especially what you did early on. But I look at, by the time I did start getting recruited, the last phone call I had with Penn State University was with Jerry Sandusky. We could talk about that later. But we're on the phone, and I'm basically begging him for a scholarship, asking him, is there one out there? I want to play. I want to be a Nittany line. And Jerry said, no, we gave out all our scholarships. I said, what about a walk-on? Could I walk on? And first I said, what if somebody turns down a scholarship? No, we already have guys lined up for that. What about a walk-on? I knew I couldn't afford to go to Penn State, but I asked. No, we already got guys for that. What if somebody turns it down? Yeah. No. Finally, he says to me, Bill, bottom line, you're not big enough or tough enough to play for for Penn State University. And my senior year, Wisconsin, who wasn't even on the map for me, beat Penn State at Penn State in 1995, our senior year of high school, to break a 20-game home win streak by the Nittany Lions. And that was an eye-opener for me. I remember watching nose guard Jason Manecki take the center right into the quarterback and sack both the center and the quarterback. I think it was the end of the game. And I was like, wow, if I got a chance to go there and keep doing that to Penn State, and that was my whole attitude. So once I had the visit, I was like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'll clean the dishes after we have lunch just to show them I'm going to do my due diligence to get out here, and I'll do whatever is asked of me. And they offered, and yeah, like I said, that was a no-brainer. I want to embarrass Penn State. I want to embarrass my whole home state and prove everybody wrong with the decision they made.
And I love the story, the revenge tour, because you have to have a little bit of that in you to play football at the Division I level. You got to kind of have that little bit of an edge to you, that little bit of a switch. So I think it's a great story.
You need something, and we're going to talk about that a lot, but you need something. And, like even when you brought up Coach Steffenhagen, I had the opportunity to meet him a handful of times throughout the years. And similar to my coach is still with us. He hasn't, as you mentioned, Coach Steffenhagen passed away. But those are like the last coaches of like the godfathers of football.
Right.
That work ethic, that build them down or break them down, build them back up type of guys that are going to get the most out of every player. Where today, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but it's just a different generation. It's a different culture of people, the way they raise their families, the way they raise their kids, the way the kids go out and work. Whether you want to say it's generational, us being, what the heck are we, Gen X? I always forget. Gen X compared to whatever the babies are called today. It's just different. Like we were out there in the streets. We learned how to handle ourselves, and coaches saw that in us. And we were not going to win a Rose Bowl unless the coaches put us through what they put us through. And we're excited to share those stories. And that's what part of this is all about, is sharing those stories, giving people some behind the scenes stuff that they didn't know prior to listening to us, and just telling the stories that we enjoy telling, that we enjoy remembering, and then, taking that minute to enjoy the accomplishments we had, and also tell behind the stories about that fans didn't know, about the week of the Rose Bowl, or the hotel we stayed at, or issues we had. Freaking the Outback Bowl, the sprinklers went off in our tent locker room, the circus tent that they put us up in. So just different stories like that we're going to be sharing on the show, and giving that little bit of extra info to the fans.
One thing too, Bill hit on, just telling their story, and so our kids and grandkids and our great grandkids can hear about this. It's kind of funny. My mom always said, you should take pictures, take a lot more pictures. And I never did, because in my mind, I'm like, Mom, I live this. I'm never going to forget this. And that was kind of my approach to I'm never going to forget it. And it's amazing how the years have peeled off and you forget things. But, you get both of us into a room, and he'll remember part of a story and I'll remember the other half of the story, or vice versa. And we feed off each other. And then by the end of it, we actually have the entire story that I never would have remembered, or from a different perspective. And it just gives people a unique perspective. And for us, been friends since 1996, and we're still doing it to this day. and it gives us more time to hang out. So it's kind of a win-win.
And I think too, like you said, your mom telling you about enjoying the stories, and my dad telling me about writing them down. I think the contradiction was at the time we were being coached. Forget about what you just accomplished. You got to work on this tomorrow.
Right.
You know, like we lose the Outback Bowl, and it's like, all right, feel sorry for yourself tonight. Enjoy yourself the next day that we're out here in Arizona, wherever we were, and then go home, spend time with your family. When you come back to campus, we are focused on going to a Rose Bowl. We win a Rose Bowl, which was, arguably undocumented other than 94, the first time they ever won it. And they say, celebrate tonight, enjoy it with your family. When you come back, we're going to work to make history. We're going to try to win two, which had never been accomplished by a Big Ten team. So we basically had anywhere from 1 day to 3 weeks to enjoy that.
Right.
And it was a good system, because if we did walk around being like, we're Rose Bowl champs and wearing the rings around campus, the success would have faded very quickly. Where in our minds, the way the coaches treated us, it was, yeah, you're in something, but you're not the best. Like,
Absolutely.
we got to do this next. We got to work harder at this. There's always room for improvement. So that's sort of the stories we want to reminisce about.
Right. And as you can see, I mean, as this goes on, we are passionate about it. Not that we're living in the past, but there are some really good stories out there that we have. It's entertaining for our families and friends who have had the opportunity to sit around and listen to us, reminisce and tell our stories. And everyone's like, you guys should be like telling people this stuff. I mean, because this is so far out of my comfort zone, but it's something that I think is super important, because eventually, Bill, I'm not going to remember these, and neither are you. The years peel off, probably one too many concussions, and, things start to fade. So that's kind of the reason why we're doing this. And, just kind of a cool experience. Get to hang out with one of my good friends that I've for 30 years. And all in all, I'm looking forward to this. I hope people out there enjoy it, can see our passion for it, and, just really get behind the scenes look at what we're doing.
And just so the fans know that are listening to this via any of your popular podcast channels that aren't watching the video right now, we are sitting about 3 feet apart because we do have a logo on the TV behind us. But we're such good friends. If it wasn't for that logo, we'd probably be hip to hip right now. And my goal is, by the time we get towards the end of doing this podcast, which who knows, maybe it's going to be years down the road, I hope we have thick gold chains with the half a heart, where I have the left half and you have the right half, and we just sit here where everybody could see. It's not us telling them we're best friends. It's showing them we're best friends.
I think you're crossing the line.
And then we wear it around town. I mean,
that's not a thing. It's not a thing.
I think it could be. I think it could be something to work for. So the last thing I just wanted to mention was because Joe brought up pictures, and I already have a picture. We didn't even hit on it yet. I have a picture we're going to post along with this episode, but Joe said pictures, and Joe said memories. So Joe's mom, similar to my mom, did a phenomenal job being a parent of a football player, keeping everything, documenting everything. And that's something we're going to go through for Joe, because I have access to a lot more pictures that are handy to be able to post than Joe. So we're going to look through them. But the reason I'm going to bring it up, I'm going to tell my story about All-Star games and how I didn't come down to Wisconsin right away, and then your viewpoint on what happened after high school and with your All-Star game. So my All-Star game, in the state of Pennsylvania, we have the Big 33, Pennsylvania versus Ohio. It's the top 33 players in the state of Pennsylvania play the top 33 players in the state of Ohio. I didn't even know about that game until I got to Wisconsin and met other players from Pennsylvania and Ohio that actually played in. I didn't even know it was a game. So, no, I did not get invited to that game. We did have the city-county all-star game, which was basically the best players in your conference played an all-star game against each other. And that was the one day, we're going to talk about money, how we were raised, how we had football cleats and stuff like that. But I spent a good chunk of graduation money. I got red Newman gloves. I got red cleats for the game. We played on a turf field that day, and I put on a red bandana. And the picture that's going to be posted with the show is going to be a picture of myself and my high school quarterback, Corey Joyce, who played in that game. Tough as nails, great baseball player, great football player. But you could see all the red that I decked out in. But that was basically I had two reasons. One, I wanted to play that game because I thought, you know what, I'm going to a Division I school. I might never play football again in front of fans. So I just said, I want to play one more game that I know I'm going to play in. And I was going 16, 17 hours away from home. So I wanted to enjoy the summer with my family. But what was your experience like after high school? Because you didn't get to play in your All-Star game.
And before I do that, we're going to get a word from our sponsor, Cabin Coffee.
Hey, Joe, what the heck does it mean when you say Cabin Coffee Altoona is a roastery? Are you making fun of the coffee or something?
Come on now, Bill. Sounds to me like you've had one too many shots to the head. It means we're a roastery. We buy our beans green from all over the world and roast right here on site. It's the freshest coffee you can get.
Is that why one place I used to go to tasted burnt and the other place tastes like brown flavored water?
That's exactly why, Bill. So stop on down to 2922 Meadowlark Lane. Cabin Coffee Altoona. Just remember, folks, everything's better at the cabin.
All right, so my experience was different. I was eligible to play in the Shrine game, and I was down at Wisconsin shortly after I graduated. I had summer conditioning doing, and that was kind of the plan. So not much of a summer break. Went down there and end up just talking to the coaches, and they say, "Hey, we got plans for you." They would never tell me not to play in the Shrine game, but they also said, we have plans for you, and the possibility of you getting hurt is in that game would really have a negative outcome on what our plans for you here. So I did not participate in the Shrine game, and we had guys that did, and it was no like, oh, I can't believe he's not playing. It was just one of those things where I kind of did the high school thing, and I was kind of looking forward to the future as to what that would entail. And that's really kind of what I was focused on. So I was all committed at Wisconsin shortly after I graduated. So I don't have any cool pictures of me wearing red, Bill.
But we are going to find pictures of you, Joe. I know Mrs. Gribowski has some good pictures, some good old pictures too.
I'm sure.
Because I got the old pictures with the curly hair and the trying to grow facial hair. And I even got a picture with the old 93 on my defensive freshman year, redshirt year, or 93 was a 3 technique. Yeah, before I moved over. A little bit slow as a 3 technique, but
and then he came over
and a power bull rush though.
And then he came over to the offense because smart guys play offense.
Absolutely. No, I hear that.
Got to be smart to play offense.
Defense, fine ball, attack ball. Yeah. Offense, you need to know everything. Absolutely. You need to know what the quarterback's doing, running back, fullback, tight ends.
I agree. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. This is the background of what we're doing here and why we're doing it. We hope you enjoy it, guys. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I get to hang out with one of my good friends here and just reminisce about football stuff, and it's always entertaining.
Stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you for listening to Joe and I today. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you like what you heard, please give 217 South Mills a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Go tell your friends about us. Like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'd like to thank Cabin Coffee Altoona for sponsoring us. Everything is always better at the cabin. See you next time. And remember, folks, Red has to run.